One of those is Shreveport City Councilman Grayson Boucher. Hey, Mr. Grayson, welcome back to Keel. How are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, y'all. I'm doing real well.
Okay, so where do we start with this? We've had the money all along, or at least the means to the money for a new police station. Wait a second, we had the bond issue because we didn't have the money for a police station. You can see where my aging mind is a little confused, right?
Well, and not necessarily.
Thanks, buddy.
There are several financing packages that are going to be falling off over the next 3 or 4 years. There's one that falls off in 2020. One that falls off in 2021 and 2022.
Okay, excuse me just a second, Grayson. Before you get, what is a financing package? How do those work? Who finances what for us?
Okay, so typically it's pretty much like going to a bank and getting a loan. However, whenever I was the fire chief, we had to go to the bond commission and get approval from the bond commission, not the voters, but to go into indebtedness. So you still have to go to the bond commission to make sure that to make sure that you're credit worthy to pay these off. So from what I understand, in 2017 or 16, Mayor Tyler's administration did a couple of packages. One was for the remounting of some ambulances, and the other was for the purchase of the fleet of police cars. I think that y'all remember we bought the Explorers back a couple of years ago. Those finance packages will be falling off, and there's a couple of other ones that will be falling off. According to the CAO, typically $1 million, at least when they got the last finance package, $1 million, the payment was $215,000 per year. So
what's the total of all of them?
These are already budgeted. I don't have that number. I know I can go back and look, and I'm going to try to get that. That's what we're going to kind of talk about. Let me back up just a little bit because I think I'm putting the cart before the horse with y'all. The reason that we are tasked as leaders of Shreveport to make sure that we are being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And when this building, I have been looking. I'm in real estate, and I have constantly been looking for buildings ever since John Nicholson and I went that hot July day and toured the police station. We have got to get them out of there. And I've been looking even during the bond process. And for the record, for my police and fire friends, I voted for the bond for Proposition 2. I've always supported Proposition 2. I didn't agree with some of the numbers, but I voted for it. So we have been looking. If you remember, we looked at the Centerpoint building and some other buildings, but my initial thought was the AT&T building because they kind of told me, well, Centerpoint won't work because there's not enough parking. So I started looking for other buildings, and the AT&T building behind Shreve City, which not ideally located, had several parking spots. So I called a commercial realtor here in town, kind of got, skinny on the whole deal about that building, and actually it went under contract. It was like $2.5 million. It's already under contract. Well, that realtor called me back, and he said, look, Grayson, he said, there's a building, this BPH building at the corner of Preston and Knight Street that might actually fit the needs better. It's double the price, but it would be something the city would be interested in. I said, of course. Now here comes part 2 of this. We're going to have to find the funding for it. So I don't want people to think, and also make sure that it meets all the checks and balances that the police department really needs this building. So this is very preliminary, but I think that's what good government does. We get out, we look, we try to do what we can to save the taxpayers' money. And if we can get this building and save the taxpayers $16 million, that's a win for everybody.
But Grayson, let me ask you this, and you know where I'm going. Why didn't we do this first? Why didn't we look at these finance packages before we put out the bond issue and go, maybe we can use this money and extend these rather than a new, property tax?
Well, I can't speak for what the administration did, but I think that if you recall, during the vote for the bond to go on the ballot, there were 3 council members that were saying that.
And this BHP bulletin is $5.5 million. What else would we have to do? I assume it needs to be a much more secure facility. I know that there was concerns about security with the Sears building and others. You'd have to fence around it, I guess?
Well, I'm not sure. We're going to go look at it Monday during the Public Safety Committee meeting. I immediately consulted some people about it whenever I found out about it, talked to several council members. Then I called the police chief, and his initial reaction was a little lukewarm because he was a little bit worried about the square footage, but then we got the verified square footage that it was over 70,000 square feet, which is right at what they were going to build. But I decided, I called the mayor as well. He was on his way out of town. I believe he's out of town all week this week. And I told him I really wanted to have a public safety meeting and we were going to have a field trip because I wanted all parties involved to go. So I arranged a Sport Tram bus to take us down there. So hopefully everybody involved will go with me on Monday. We'll look at it. We'll see if it meets our needs, and if it does, then we'll progress and try to figure out a way to pay for it.
Grayson, obviously, I have no idea what these numbers would be. Maybe you do. Like you said, maybe you don't have them in front of you. I certainly would not. The rate of these the bonds that you're kind of borrowing that you're kind of looking at now, as opposed to what would have been the rate for the bond issue, is this a better deal interest-wise?
I can't answer that question right now, Robert. Like I said, we're kind of in the infancy stages of this. I believe, just from a little bit of research that I've done, and I don't want to be held to this. I'm even reluctant to even say it. I believe it would be. I think it would be comparable.
But no matter the point, we'd be borrowing a whole lot less, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you put a package together that would replace some fire trucks, do some renovations to fire stations, buy, I think I'd figured maybe like 50 police cars and get this new police station. And I'm in real estate, so let's say just for, I don't know, maybe we could get it for $4.5 million and put $500,000 in it. I don't know. I know it's got a brand new generator. It's got a solar power system. There's 30 acres with that track. I don't know if that's included. That's something we're going to have to look into. I mean, it's just, everything's negotiable in the real estate world, so maybe we could get it for a little bit cheaper. But yes, I mean, I think that I think we would be maybe 25% of what the bond was, and be able to do some things to get things moving forward in the city. And I think that that's what it all boils down to. I think the taxpayers are fatigued. At least the ones in my area are fatigued with the millage rates right now and the sales tax rates. And I think that we're just looking for some answers and some ideas of maybe thinking outside the box. And I said this when I ran, Robert, what is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're going to have to really start looking out of the box in Shreveport.